I'm more of a globe Earth questioner than a flat Earth believer. That is the $64,000 question, isn't it? Who is they? It is very, very scary to have your whole belief system destroyed.
I'm an open-minded person.
Society does not want to hear the truth. Dinosaur bones are all fake.
I am a skeptic. Hi guys, so today I am here with a man called John Hamer. He's an author and a public speaker. John has studied our history and our science, and he has come to the conclusion that all is not what it seems, and has subsequently written books called The Falsification of History and The Falsification of Science, where he takes apart the mainstream version of events and offers an alternative view. John, it's great to have you here, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thanks, Stu.
Do you just want to
Nice of you to ask me.
briefly?
Sorry, it's nice of you to ask me, mate. Thank you. Good to be here.
No problem at all. Okay, so just before we actually get into it, I want to let the viewers know that I myself, I'm an open-minded person. I like to look into things, but I am a skeptic, and I don't just believe things on people's word. I do like to see evidence and logic as well. But yeah, I think it's important to be open-minded. I think it's important to question things. And so, John, I just want to start by reading out a quote from yourself that I've got like word for word
Okay.
that you said. So you said all the events that I talk about did actually happen, but not just in the way that they tell us, or not for the reasons that they tell us. They
Yeah.
twist it to
Yeah.
fit their ongoing agenda, which changes over the years, but is broadly the same. So my first question for you today, John, is
Yeah.
who is they?
That is the $64,000 question, isn't it? Who is they? I think we all get asked that. I get asked that
Yeah.
all the time, and it's not a simple answer. It's not like a one sentence answer. They is a conglomerate of various different factions, including but not exclusive to Freemasonry, a loose collection of billionaires and trillionaires who really run the country, not governments, as we're led to believe. Governments are puppets dancing to their tune, basically. And then there are lots and lots of different committees and factions, such as the Committee of 300. The WEF is heavily involved, and we know the WEF was involved in, what happened between the years 20 and 22.
So the World Economic, you're talking about the World Economic Forum there.
I'm talking about the World Economic Forum basically drove the COVID alleged pandemic. Yeah. It's kind of indefinable. It's a bit amorphous, but they're generally people who sit up here and control everything else to give us the illusion, A, we live in a democracy, and B, that governments are in charge, neither of which is true. Okay. So democracy is basically the best system that money can buy. Democracy is put there to make us believe that we have a say in our lives and our futures. We don't. No matter who you vote for, sadly, the government always gets in. And that is the problem. Yeah. It's a bit of a glib statement. I appreciate that. But it's true. And, there are unseen forces. And, people say, this guy's a conspiracy theorist. I wish I'd had a pound for every time someone called me that. But I'm not. I'm a conspiracy factist. I don't say or write anything that has not been thoroughly researched and fitted into my landscape of reality, if for want of a better phrase. So, I'm not a theorist. I only talk about provable facts, and these facts are provable. So, yeah.
Okay. So in short, then, really, it's and I believe this as well. I think that the whole politics at the government level and stuff, that's just all a stage. The people that are really making the decisions are above
Yeah, it's all theatre. Oh, absolutely all theatre, Stu. So, what we see and hear in the news is just basically dressed up for public consumption to hide what is going on behind that curtain of power, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Brilliant. I think that's a good way to start it. So let's go back then. Let's start off by going way back and let's like talk about the universe and like the laws of the
Right.
universe and gravity and stuff. So
Yeah.
again, because I don't ever want to sort of put words in people's mouths or misquote people, I've written this word for word that I've actually heard you say before. And
Okay.
you said they have to have gravity to make their fake model of the universe work. So
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. And so my question is, so if the model that we've been told isn't true,
Yeah.
what is the model? What are you saying is the model?
Right. It's again, there's never a simple answer. I am accused of being a flat earther. Well, I kind of am. I would say I'm more of a globe earth questioner than a flat earth believer because there are so many proofs, and I use that word guardedly,
Yeah,
of flat earth, and yet there are some proofs of globe earth as well. And it's very, very difficult to discern the difference. Now, what I believe may be the answer is that the Earth is actually bigger than we believe it to be. Okay, because if you use the standard formula for calculating the curvature of the Earth, and I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. I always forget it. But nevertheless, this is a mainstream formula. It just doesn't work because you can see things a long way away that you shouldn't be able to see because they should be below the curvature of the Earth. For example, in my book, Falsification of Science, when I talk about this stuff, there is a picture of the Chicago skyline from something like 56 miles away. And you can see the entire skyscraper blocks from top right down to the bottom. So it's not just that you can see the tips of the skyscrapers. Now, using the official globe Earth curvature calculation, they should be over 1,000 feet behind the horizon. And I've never, ever heard a plausible explanation of why that would be if we live on this globe that is 24,000 miles in circumference.
yeah. So you're
So
saying we shouldn't be able to see them. They would have already disappeared down beyond the curve.
that's right, absolutely. And that is not that, I just mentioned that one photograph, but there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of examples of this. So, this is it's a problem. It's a problem with their model. And this is just one example of a problem with their model. I go into lots and lots of other details about it, again, in the book. For example, another example, okay? Now, plane flights in the southern hemisphere. Let me just say, the standard, model of the flat Earth, as it is from flat Earth enthusiasts, it's a disc, like a saucer-shaped disc, with a dome over the top, which keeps all the atmosphere in, and that's another problem. Why does the Earth's atmosphere not dissipate into space? Space is a vacuum. Nature hates a vacuum, and what it does is it fills it. So why doesn't the Earth's atmosphere dissipate into space? That's another problem. Okay, but what I was going to talk about was the flat Earth model, which is a saucer-shaped disc. So in other words, it's that shape. So it's concave with a globe over the top of it. In the middle of that is the Arctic. And then all around the edge are all the different continents. And then people say, oh, well, why doesn't the water spill over the edge? Well, the water doesn't spill over the edge, A, because there's a dome, and B, because there is a 200-foot ice wall all the way around the edge. This is in the model I'm talking about. This is not necessarily my belief. Okay, so the 200-foot ice wall does exist. We know that. And that is what tends to keep everything in equilibrium. But going back to plane flights in the southern hemisphere, again, this is just one more example, is that if you were to fly from, let's pick somewhere at random, Santiago in Chile, which I know this to be a fact, okay, to Cape Town, you think, well, that's just a quick hop around the curve to from South America to South Africa. No, the flight from Santiago to South Africa actually refuels in North Africa. Okay, and that's just one example. Okay, I won't go into, there are hundreds of examples. Okay, so the thing about that is, if you extrapolate that onto the flat Earth model, onto the flat Earth map, that's a straight line. So again, inexplicable. You know, globe earthers will refuse to debate me, even though I'm not a committed flat earther. The reason they won't debate me is because they know that their model doesn't stand up to scrutiny. Now, okay, so that's a part of the answer to your question. The full answer to your question is that if the Earth is a flat plane or a saucer-shaped plane, how does that relate to the rest of their model of the universe? If our sphere is the wrong word, if our realm is flat, covered with a dome, what is the reasoning for all the planets and suns and stars, right? Okay, they make it all up. Okay, now we know that NASA are liars. We know that NASA, all that NASA is about is an agenda to deceive us. You know, some people say NASA stands for never a straight answer, and that is absolutely true. They contradict themselves so many times. They talk absolute nonsense. Again, I've got lots of quotes from NASA in my book. They're masters of deceit, basically. NASA was formed by, all right, the idea of NASA was mooted by 5 interesting individuals, all of whom were Satanists. Okay. Wernher von Braun, who was an ex-Nazi rocket scientist, Jack Whiteside Parsons, who was a very high-ranking member of the Satanic Order, the Ordo Templis Orientis. Aleister Crowley, who a lot of people will know that name. He was regarded as being the wickedest man in the world. He was a very famous occultist. A guy by the name of L. Ron Hubbard, who invented the fake religion of Scientology. And perhaps most surprising of all, a certain Mr. Walt Disney. Okay, now those 5 people mooted the idea of NASA in the very early 1950s or late 1940s, and it actually came to fruition in the mid-1950s. So NASA is a very, very suspect and occultic organization who are there to fool us about everything that goes on outside this realm that we live in. You know, so
is that sorry to interrupt.
Right,
Is that Operation Paperclip?
Operation Paperclip was the removal of Nazi scientists after the end of World War II.
But they brought a lot of
America,
and I think that's like what I'm referring to. Did they go on to some of those people that you've just mentioned?
Yeah, they did. Wernher von Braun was the main one. He was the famous one, but he had a lot of underlings that he brought with him. Yeah, and you know, I mean, Wernher von Braun was actually critical of the moon landings program. He said it wasn't possible, basically, in his more off guard moments.
I mean, I don't really want to get into the moon landings, but I'll just to put my 2 pence in there. I'm not convinced. I mean, I don't know either way, but to me, there's still so many unanswered questions and things that don't add up. And the fact that they have actually admitted, NASA, of doctoring photos and using, you know, fake photos and film sets and stuff just to make it look more, you know, aesthetically pleasing.
Well, they had to do that, Stu, because it came to a point where they couldn't defend their version of events anymore, so they had to backtrack, like all good liars. And well, they're not that good liars, unfortunately, but there you go. So yeah, we won't touch the moon landings, but that was just an example. But I mean, it's part of the whole, the bigger picture, if you like, because if NASA is all fake and outer space is all fake, which I'm not 100% convinced, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me, because I believe that what they do is they actually use this model of the universe we are very, very powerful spiritual beings if we're left to our own devices. They have to kick that out of us. They have to knock that concept out of us, because the only way that a few thousand people can control 8 billion, allegedly, of us is by creating this fake idea that somehow we're just in tiny, random, insignificant specks of nothingness that came about, through a random Big Bang. I mean, the Big Bang is absolute nonsense. I absolutely dissect that to bits. The Big Bang is just basically bullshit. Honestly. And so, if we consider that, the fact that we are powerful spiritual beings, they don't want us to believe that we're unique in the universe and that we have this power, then the way that they do that is to create this fake model of the universe, which tells us the story that there are alien species out there, and we are just one of billions and trillions of other random cosmic accidents. So therefore, that makes us believe that we're really nothing special, whereas I believe we are. So, and to go back to the bit about gravity, the whole model of their universe is hung together with gravity. Without gravity, the whole model of the universe does not exist at all.
Okay, so if I drop my pen, so what's the force then that's bringing the pen forward?
It's very, very simple. Isaac Newton, who allegedly discovered gravity when an apple fell on his head. I mean, okay, that story is just an apocryphal story, but it was to make a point. He wrote a book to describe gravity. Now, Newton was a senior Freemason, a very, very high-ranking Freemason. It was part of the Royal Society, which is absolutely Freemasonically driven, and the Royal Society is the body that controls all of science worldwide, not just in this country, but worldwide. Nothing gets accepted into mainstream science without the approval of the Royal Society, which, as I say, is totally Freemasonic driven. And Freemasons, and I'm not talking about the guys who go to the lodge meeting every week and raise money for charity and do gala dinners and that. I'm not talking about those kinds of Freemasons. I'm talking about senior Freemasons, 31, 32, and 33rd degree Freemasons. These are the people who create this fake box of reality that we live in. But I'm getting off the point. So if Newton, senior Freemason, wrote a book in the very late 1600s called Principia Mathematica. Now, Principia Mathematica was about that thick, okay? And the sole purpose of the book was to describe how gravity works. And even more significantly, it began with one particular word, this book, and that word was if. So what does that tell you? If. Yeah. If, and then a whole massive tome of work to describe something that is so simple, it's absolutely unbelievable. But if what I'm going to tell you now was accepted by mainstream science, then the entirety of the universe would not work. So they have to have this complex, complicated thing to describe how it all hangs together. And yeah. I'll stop waffling now and I'll tell you, I'll answer your question. Okay, if you drop your pen or you drop anything on the floor, it will fall to the floor. And why is that? It's nothing to do with a force pulling it down. It's purely and simply because, a pen or this mouse or whatever is more dense than air. Okay, if Newton's apple had not fallen on his head, had fallen into the pond he was lying beside, it would have floated because an apple is less dense than water. It's all about relative density. So, for example, smoke rising from a fire. It will rise into the air because it's less dense than air. A butterfly, a butterfly. How can the same force, gravity, simultaneously hold trillions upon trillions upon trillions of tons of water around this globe, and yet allow you to swim through that water and still allow tiny little insects to fly into the air? If gravity was so all powerful as they tell us it is, it doesn't make sense. I mean, the whole thing does not make sense anyway. But there you go. I mean, this is just a tiny little snapshot for anybody out there who's listening to this and thinking this guy's a bloody loony. You know, this is stuff that I've researched over a very, very long period of time, and I can assure you that what they're telling us about all this stuff is absolutely not true. Yeah. So there you go. That was a very long answer to a short question. So.
No, but I mean, the thing is, though, John, like, just for the record, like, I don't think that people like you are loonies. I think that it is important that if you feel something doesn't make sense, ask the question. Like, have a look for yourself, and that's like my message to people watching this, you know, and maybe my friends and family that are watching this, because, you know, we all have those situations where, like, people have laughed at me. Like, I got ridiculed during the whole COVID, you know, situation and stuff because I refused to wear a mask. I refused to have the, you know, and now people have actually started to realise that there were that many lies told. It's difficult to know what to believe. So no, I don't think that. Certainly open-minded people anyway don't think that you're a lunatic, or people that with your views are lunatics. I think in fact, I actually think now that we're seeing more and more people start to question things, and more people are actually starting to wake up to the fact that, you know, the mainstream media is a pantomime, and we are just constantly being fed a lie by politicians and governments.
Yeah. As I said before, Stu, they have to do it because they have to create this fake reality because it's the only way they can control us. Well, that and through fear as well. Fear is a big one. Yeah. You know, people out there may have noticed that we just lurch from one major crisis to another constantly. It's an ongoing thing, ongoing. Keep people fearful, and what that does, it keeps us in a low state of vibration, which allows them to impose their will on us much more easily than if we were all happy chappies going about our lives and you know, basically enjoying ourselves. Instead, they create this aura of absolute fear to prevent us from realizing our true potential.
Wow, I mean, you're blowing my mind. It's really this kind of stuff. It really does, like, fascinate me, and I love to, like, have conversations like this. So the next one then is, like, I heard you talk about the dinosaurs, and this really got my attention because I'd sort of heard the odd thing, like, on what's his name? Joe Rogan had someone on there talking about this, but I didn't really watch it because I just thought, you know, and again, I try and be as honest as I can. And I just thought, what?
Yeah. Right.
What going on about? So it didn't really, like, sort of grab my interest, so to speak. So I heard you say again, and I am going to quote you, like, word for word. So you said, dinosaurs do not exist. They never existed. They're used as a prop for their fake theory of evolution. Okay, so that's what you said. Now, I'll be totally honest with you, John. Like, this one, I wouldn't say I struggle with it. I'm open-minded to it.
Yeah.
Maybe I've just been indoctrinated because all kids love dinosaurs, don't they? And when I was growing up, like, you know, you love the dinosaurs, and it'd absolutely destroy a lot of people if that all of a sudden, like, wasn't true. So I've sort of struggled with this, but
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. Since like we arranged this interview, I've done a little bit of digging, and I came across so. If you look at the skeleton, like say, of a rabbit,
Yeah.
you can quite easily see how they could make that into like a little velociraptor or something. You can tell I've actually had a look into it rather than just like go,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
I've actually looked into it, and I can sort
Yeah.
of see now like where you're coming from. So I've got two questions for this one. My first one is why fake the dinosaurs, and then my second one is what about the fossil records? Is that fake? Okay, so my first one is why fake the dinosaurs?
Right. Well, again, you kind of answered that yourself. It's basically a prop for evolution, which they know is a complete load of nonsense. In fact, what I'll do, if you just bear with me a second, I do a presentation on evolution, and I think it might be useful to just, if you just bear with me a second, Stu.
Yeah,
I
no.
think I on my stand-up presentation that I do about evolution, as well as talking about dinosaurs, I also, first of all, I actually completely debunk evolution in literally in 2 minutes, and it's quite easy to do. But do you mind if I do that?
No, carry on.
All right, I'll just wait for this. My laptop is very slow, but I'm just waiting for my PowerPoint presentation to fire up. Here we go. Nearly there. Sorry about that.
It's fine. Take your time, mate.
Right. Okay. Here we go. Right. What I say at this point is I can't show you the slide. Obviously, I don't. But I'll just read the slides basically.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to start with a quote from the Encyclopedia Britannica, which obviously is part of the establishment, but nevertheless, what they're saying on this particular quote is probably accurate. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but then again, I'm not a weatherman either. But I only need to look out the window to see whether or not it's raining. So, you know, they say a simple one-cell bacterium contains DNA information units that are the equivalent of 100 million pages of the Encyclopedia Britannica. So let that sink in. A simple one-cell bacterium contains DNA information units that are the equivalent of 100 million pages of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Right? And then, now, the basic functional unit of a cell, a single cell, is a protein. Now, proteins comprise hundreds of different amino acids, and to even work at all, they all have to be in the right order. Now, a simple single cell bacterium alone contains thousands of different proteins. The molecular biologist Francis Crick, who was a credible guy, he was one of the two guys that discovered the DNA molecule in Cambridge in the 1950s. Francis Crick calculated the odds of a protein occurring by chance as being 1 in 10 to the power of 260, which is basically a 1 followed by 260 zeros. Now, just to give you an idea of that number, it is so vast, a 1 followed by 260 zeros, that is actually greater than the number of atoms in the known universe. The number of atoms in the known universe, not the number of planets, not the number of galaxies, not the number of biological entities, the number of atoms. Okay, and significantly, mathematicians classify as impossible anything having odds of greater than 1 in 10 to the power of 50. Now, that's a 1 followed by 50 zeros, which is a minuscule number compared to the earlier 1 in 10 to the power of 260. So what this means in effect, it means that it would have been impossible absolutely impossible, because mathematics tells us that, to get one protein by chance, let alone the thousands of different proteins that a simple one-celled creature would need to function or even exist. Furthermore, a cell would need the ability to ingest nutrients, to expel waste, and to reproduce. So if that one cell ever developed by chance, which is what evolutionists tell us, that very first cell would have had to develop and perfect the process of cellular reproduction in the span of its own single lifetime. Because if it didn't, there would never have been a second cell, and Darwin's ridiculous evolutionary process would have ended right there and then.
Right.
So there we go. So that, yeah. So we got off. I got off the topic slightly, but it's connected, because dinosaurs are a prop for evolution. They were thought up by a Freemason by the name of Richard Owen, who in 1842, who was the head of the Royal Society. The Royal Society, as I explained before, is the ruling organization for mainstream science. And this was nothing but pure speculation on his part. No alleged dinosaur fossils had ever been discovered at this point in time. So doesn't that fact in itself strike you as odd? The fact that he came up with the idea of these creatures, and yet no dinosaur fossils had ever been found at that point. But no matter. The mainstream media picked up on it, the Freemasons picked up on it worldwide, and they quickly began to report on these amazing yet never existent creatures, which created a sensation through the entirety of science. And then around 10 years or so later, the first dinosaur fossil allegedly was found in the US Midwest. Great, proof at last, said everyone, all the vested interests. And yet, amazing, isn't it, that not a single person in the entire history of the world had ever discovered a dinosaur fossil until very shortly after the creatures were first described. So yeah, I mean, there's so much information I could impart on this. I'm trying to keep it brief, but there is no civilization in the world either with a written history or a verbal history that mentions these giant lizards. Okay, and you mentioned dinosaur fossils. I'll talk about dinosaur bones as well. Dinosaur bones are all fake. Every single one of them are fake, and it's so easy to prove because, again, all this stuff's in my book, Falsification of Science. There is a company in China, in Sichuan province in China, called the Zhejiang Dino Ocean Art Company, who openly state on their website, and I would encourage everybody to look this up if they don't believe me, or even if they do believe me.
What did you say? What did you say it was?
The Zhejiang.
Is that Z-E-G?
Zigong, I believe. I can't remember the exact spelling now.
Yeah.
Zhejiang Dino, D-I-N-O, Ocean Art Company. And they openly admit that they supply all the natural history museums, all the major natural history museums around the world with their dinosaur bones. And when questioned, the Natural History Museum in London actually said, oh yeah, it's true, all the ones on display are artificial, but the real ones are so valuable they have to be kept under lock and key in the cellar, and only certain qualified scientists are allowed to see them. How convenient. The Ocean Art Company tell you exactly how they make them. They make them from powdered animal bones, plaster, and one or two other bits of materials, glue, all sorts of stuff. So yeah.
So when people go to, like, say, for instance, the Natural History Museum in London,
Yeah.
We know that obviously, the big whale that's like in the first part of the museum. We know that that's fake. They admit that that's fake, but they apparently have real fossils like in behind glass
That's what they say.
and things like that. That's what they say. But
That's what they say. And also, and the Smithsonian Museum as well in New York. Is it New York or Washington? I can't remember. But anyway, they also say that um, they keep all the real ones behind locked doors. So yeah. Okay. There's other things as well. The actual structural dynamics. Many of these dinosaur skeleton reconstruction, and they're all reconstructions. They feature things like the Tyrannosaurus Rex with its forward-leaning torso and a head far larger and heavier than its counterbalancing tail. And a lot of the museum displays of these things can't even stand up under their own weight without support. So it's very, very unlikely that the beasts that were this large and disproportionate could have even existed at all. The loads acting on their skeletons are so great that calculations made by real scientists, and I'm not talking about mainstream scientists, by real scientists, tell us that the bones of the largest dinosaurs would buckle and crack under their own immense weight. And the whole thing is just basically nonsense, mate. Yeah, but why do they do it? As I say, it's a proper evolution, and we know that it's constantly thrust into the face of children. You mentioned yourself, Stu, that it was a bit of a shock to you because as a kid growing up, they're everywhere, aren't they? Yeah. But it fits in with the ideology of catch 'em young. Okay, if you capture the kids at a young age, try and convince them that what they've been taught as a child isn't true, and you'll have a very difficult job on your hands. So this is why they do it. They're in books, toys, games, computer games, cuddly toys, pictures on pajamas, all the rest of it. The whole gamut. Children's lives are saturated with dinosaur imagery. Yeah. And of course, it does. I mean, these people are experts at propaganda, and that's what it is. It's propaganda, and it's designed to capture children when they're very young. And then you try telling someone who's grown up loving dinosaurs that they never existed, and it's just a fable. Then it's hard to convince them.
It's not, so when you say that, and I relate that to myself.
Yeah,
I can relate it to people around me. It's like whenever you talk about something controversial or that's linked to conspiracies or anything like that, there's a certain amount of people that they don't even want to acknowledge it. They don't even want to talk about it because they're just, I don't know. It's almost like people have been indoctrinated that much that they don't have the ability to even just question it or have a conversation about it. Like one of the things that really grieves me in today's society is you can be having a conversation with someone, it's going really well, and you're agreeing on everything.
Yeah.
And then one thing you disagree on, and that's it. It's over.
Yeah.
They don't want to continue the discussion. They don't like you as a person. Why is that? Why can't it? And we saw this. We saw this in the pandemic.
Yes.
Any person that went against what we were hearing on the mainstream, not even went against it, literally asked a question. Like for me, it's like, I'm sorry, but anybody telling me that walking one way around a restaurant and having to wear your mask, but then once you sat down, you can take it off. Anybody that tries to tell me that that makes sense is an idiot. And I'm sorry if that offends you, but all you've got to do is think about it. And this is what happened. And I think it comes down to the old that old saying, divide and conquer, divide and rule.
Well, people have been trained not to think, Stu. This is the point. And again, it's done deliberately. the people who control, there's only one way they can control us, by totally keeping us in this box,
Yeah.
this little box of fake reality. And things like dinosaurs, things like what you've just mentioned, I won't repeat it again. Don't want to set the claxons off at YouTube HQ. They are deliberately inured into us. And because these people, don't forget, they're masters of propaganda, they're masters of the human psyche. They employ people to come up with these ideas, and they bombard us with stuff to the extent that we cannot believe that it's not true, because it's ubiquitous, it's everywhere. It permeates every element of society, and people just cannot conceive that that might be untrue. And this is how it works.
Yeah.
So,
And it's a shame, and at times it actually can be like heartbreaking, because it pulls people apart. You lose friends, you lose family.
yeah.
Obviously, I don't know like your story that in depth. Maybe in the future we'll cross paths again and maybe talk a little bit more in deeper discussion. But that just moves me on to the last thing then, and that moves me nicely onto the last thing, because I hear that like obviously you're a public speaker, you go and do speeches and stuff. And I hear you mention that like you've actually been cancelled from certain venues and what have you. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I will, without being too specific, as we mentioned off air. I mean, I have certain beliefs that are just completely taboo. Okay, and when people find out that I have these beliefs, even truth groups will deny me a platform. But having said that, it's not usually the organisers of the talk that actually cancel me. It's usually the venues. For example, last year I had a speaking tour of Ireland planned, and then the week before it was all cancelled because all 5 venues decided they didn't want me there because I speak the truth. And this is the problem. The society does not want to hear the truth, because there's something called cognitive dissonance, which means that you cannot, when you've got a fixed set of beliefs that you've had hammered into your brain for all your lifetime, it's very difficult to penetrate that barrier. And it's a kind of a protection mechanism, if you like. I use the phrase a lot, and that is this phrase, and that is that people tend to have the attitude of, don't confuse me with the facts, I've already made my mind up. and that is so true, and I hear that all the time, not in those words, but that kind of thing, and it comes down to what you were saying before about open-mindedness, mate. People generally have had their minds closed permanently by the way that society operates, and by the way that these people fool us into believing that we are completely, and that society and reality is totally different to what it actually is. And that's the whole crux of the issue. So yeah, I do get cancelled because of my beliefs, because the truth is a very, very dangerous thing these days, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and it's just a shame, because why? I just don't understand why people don't want to have an open discussion. Like, if they believe that you're wrong, and if they believe that what you're talking is nonsense, okay, we'll just have a conversation. Then what harm is it going to do?
I know what you're saying, but it's because they're scared that you will destroy their belief system. That's why.
Yeah.
And again, that's something that's been inculcated into them, to believe that what they believe is true, and that's it, and they won't tolerate anything from outside that box of beliefs that contradicts what they're absolutely convinced is the truth. So unless you're open-minded, and I don't just mean reasonably open-minded, I mean very, very open-minded, you will not accept any of this information that we've been talking about today.
Yeah, and it's a shame. I suppose really you can't blame people. It's
not their
like
fault.
you've just said there. it's a defense mechanism. They're putting up a
Yes.
barrier. They're sort of shielding themselves, because I suppose for a lot of people, it it can probably be a bit scary.
It is, absolutely. I mean, that's a very good point. It is very, very scary to have your whole belief system destroyed.
Yeah.
Because what I write about, what I talk about, it's not just like odd, isolated things that are just kind of on the periphery of what reality consists of. This is the entirety of reality. I often use the expression when I'm talking and on podcasts and stuff. Reality is actually like a 10 million or a 10 billion piece, or whatever large number you want to say, jigsaw puzzle. As you start putting the pieces in place through research and understanding what's really going on, the picture becomes clearer, just like a jigsaw puzzle. On your table, as you put more pieces in place, the picture begins to take shape. And that then allows you to put even more pieces in place, and so on and so on. And very quickly, you don't have to have the entirety of the jigsaw puzzle in place to understand what that picture is telling you. And this is exactly how that transition from closed-minded to open-minded works. But you've got to have a bit of open-mindedness to start with before you kind of would even go down that road. So yeah, it's all very it's a difficult concept to get across to people, but I would urge anybody who's listened to this to do your own research. Read my books.
Yeah.
That's what there. I've got 8 books, all of which are on different kind of themes of the truth, basically. I am first and foremost a truther. I have no agenda. I have no axe to grind. I go where the facts lead me. I go where my research leads me. I go where the truth leads me. Anything that doesn't fit into that pattern for whatever reason doesn't get included in what I'm saying, because I don't deal in theories. I don't deal in, unlike science. I mean, when you look at science, everything's a theory. The theory of evolution, the Big Bang theory. It's all theory, this theory, that. Science will not admit it doesn't know anything. It has to come up with a solution to create this whole reality hang together of theirs. But it's all theory. It's all theory. There's no practical proof there whatsoever in many, many cases. So yeah, sorry for rambling, but there you go. I'll get off my soapbox now.
That's what we're here for. That's what this whole thing has been about. And I think like the way that you just described it there with the jigsaw puzzle,
Yeah,
I think it's brilliant. And I just think it's a good way of like ending our discussion today. So just want to wrap it up and say thank you so much for your time. Just quickly before we go, let people know where they can find you, like what's your website, have you got your own YouTube channel, and I will leave links for these and everything in the description as well.
sure.
And I'll just let you know as well, John, as an extra thank you for your time, I am definitely going to go ahead and buy your book. Now, your first one is the history one, wasn't it? The
Falsification of History was my first one, yeah.
If you want to tell people about you, just briefly about your books.
Yeah, very brief. I just run through them.
And where that can find you.
Yeah, my first book was Falsification of History, which is far and away the bestseller because it's such a basic introduction to this world that we've been discussing over the last hour. So that's the most popular one. My next book, which was a couple of years afterwards, is called RMS Olympic because I did 3 years research on the Titanic story. Anybody who's interested in the Titanic story might be interested in RMS Olympic because it tells you the real truth of what happened with the Titanic and not the sanitized tale that we get. Okay, so I won't tell you the basics of it because I don't want to spoil the surprise. But yeah, RMS Olympic. I then wrote a novel, my first and only ever venture into novel writing, called Titanic's Lost Secret, which was based on RMS Olympic. So it was a novel based on the facts in RMS Olympic. And the fact that was followed by a huge tome called Behind the Curtain, which is a huge 2-volume treatise about and it's an expose of the New World Order, basically. You know, what they have planned for us, what they've been doing over the past centuries, and how they've been achieving that. So that's 5 books, isn't it? My next one was JFK, a very British coup. Anybody interested in the JFK assassination? It tells you the real truth about it and how Britain was deeply, deeply MI6, deeply involved in that, and why. Okay, and what really happened, not again the sanitized version that we all get. My 7th book was The Falsification of Science, which we've mainly been talking about today, Stu. And the last one was written after the COVID a couple of years, and that is called Welcome to the Masquerade. And that is a detailed treatise on every element of that and what was really going on and why and how they promulgated it and how they carried it out. And that was written jointly with my co-author in the States, Shannon Rowan, who was a very good friend and a brilliant writer. So yeah, those are the 8 books. You can order all my books directly, signed copies directly from me on my website. Only in the UK though. If you're watching this from anywhere outside the UK, you'll have to go either email me, which Stu will put on the bottom of
I'll put it in the description.
In the description, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Yeah, you can email me and I can ship copies out anywhere in the world, signed copies. Or if you prefer, you can just go directly to Amazon. All my books are on there. Just basically just go to the search bar in Amazon, type my name in, and all my books will pop up, and you can order direct from there. On my website, there's also all the hundreds upon hundreds of podcasts that I've done over the last 15 years. Some of them the links may be dead. I don't know. I've not gone back in time and checked them constantly, but certainly the most recent ones over the last few years will still be there. So yeah, lots of podcasts. My website also contains lots and lots of articles that I've written over the years. Some stuff of which doesn't appear in my books. So some of it does, some of it doesn't. Yeah, that's about it really. I also do various talks. They all go on the website as well. So if anybody's interested in coming along and hearing me talk, it'd be lovely to meet you. Details of all my talks appear in my website. So that's about it really.
That is absolutely brilliant. I've really enjoyed that.
Thanks, mate. It's all right.
We are coming in at just under an hour, which is brilliant. I don't really want to go much beyond that, to be honest. But again, just thank you so much for your time. I really do find this kind of stuff really fascinating. I'll definitely look forward to reading your book. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not much of a reader, but if I can get into a book, there are just a few books that I have read, and hopefully, I'll be able to get into yours. I think I will. I think I'll be interested in it enough. So, again, John, I just want to thank you for your time. It's been absolutely brilliant.
My pleasure.
Let's stay in touch.
And
maybe at some point we'll meet in person. I'll come to one of your talks.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch anyway, mate.
Absolutely brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. That's great.
You're welcome. You're welcome.